But first, what I was wanted to speak about was I think it was a couple days ago, a program on the BBC talking about the state of sport. Well, it brought up a couple of interesting points from the aspect of the mindset, and the ones that I'm going to talk to you a little bit about and uh, get your thoughts on is to do with anti-doping. Obviously, they brought up the fact that, off the top of my head, I think it was about 49% of people in amateur sports do some kind of doping. That kind of, I wouldn't say surprised me, because obviously at elite level, I won't say it's rife, but it's commonplace in the media that it happens. So it's obviously going to trickle down to the amateur ranks and be a problem, because there's that um, sense there's a little bit less to lose, so to speak, because there's not the uh, that prestige, so to speak, which the elite people speak about, which I sort of don't agree with, because obviously uh, things to do with bad substances to some degree, in depending on what country you're in, is a criminal offence. Obviously, that's going to have a possible knock-on effect on your um, obviously income, obviously, because it's going to affect your job if you get in trouble with the police. So that is also going to be a problem. But what they did raise in the program was about solving the problem. They did say, obviously, we should educate kids more as to what are the actual pitfalls, um, the negative sides of doping. Whereas I think um, it is the case sometimes, obviously, with doping, uh, any sort of cheating, it's somebody's way of shortcoming the training and finding a shortcut. It's something that you could probably apply to nutrition, fitness as well. It's always people are trying to find that quick fix, whereas to a certain extent that doesn't exist, because there's always going to be a what if to it. Say, for example, a diet pill. Well, it says you're gonna lose X amount of weight in a week. Well, you should actually look at that from a skeptical point of view and say, well, hang on there. There's all these people losing this supposed amount of weight in this sort of time period, but what are the actual people? What's actually happening to them after they stop taking it? Are they putting on weight? Are they able to maintain it? Whereas companies like that do not tell you, because obviously from a marketing standpoint, it won't sell the product as well as, say, this person has lost a hell of a lot amount of weight. And if I come back to that point with obviously with um, doping again, and obviously educating the kids at a young age, they were talking about probably primary school or something. To a certain extent, you've got to maybe have a cut-off point to what age you're going to actually tell people about drugs. Okay, it is probably uh, kids in this generation are probably more at um, exposed to that kind of thing, be it television, media, news, obviously, then more so than when I was a child, because it's the actual information is readily available. So yeah, it's probably a good thing to educate them. Okay, if I talk from my personal experience, I think what probably brought it home to me as an athlete was Oh God, what was the athlete's name? Obviously, the athlete that won a bronze medal at the Salt Lake City Games in 2002, and obviously subsequently had his medal taken off him because he tested positive for a banned substance because he'd taken a Vicks inhaler. Obviously, the packaging is the same in the US as it is over here in the UK, but there's an extra ingredient in the American one, which is about, well, I'm assuming it still is because I've not looked at the anti-doping pages since I've been retired, but I'm assuming it is, and obviously he was subsequently tested positive and lost his medal, and for I'm going to say most of the British athletes coming through of my generation will have heard that story, and it would have been kind of it was a definite wake-up call to me. Probably a lot of the athletes can probably relate to that and say that's probably the case as well. And obviously that's kind of it. You can't be naive and think, oh, I'll just take this medication because it is the same as from an aesthetical perspective as the medication I take home, as I take at home, and assume everything's going to be okay, all right. So from that aspect, we were taught if you've got any medication to a certain degree that is over the counter, more say than prescription one. Obviously, check it before you take it at home. If it's not banned, obviously you want to take a certain amount of supply with you when you go to, be it training camps, competitions abroad, and so on. So if that did occur and you had a drug test, obviously you're going to write down what you've taken in. Oh, this is off the top of my head because I can't remember what with the test. It's been so long. I think it's over the past week, and you'll write down every medication that you've taken. Obviously, they'll test to look for those and whatever else is in your urine sample, and to see. Obviously, down the years, I think I've done. Ooh, what would it have been? I'm going to say at least 4 drug tests, and obviously nothing. I've come back clean every single one. The last one would have been in 2012, and I ticked the box that they could keep the sample, obviously to retest to see as science progresses, they can keep as close as the cheats as possible. So my test will probably be on ice 2017 for the next 3 years. So I know I was a clean athlete. I've got no problem with obviously science trying to a certain extent catch out obviously the ones that are trying to cheat. So to come back to the earlier point that I was raising, and kind of saying why kids should be educated, it's probably a case of it's probably educating them such that they know, obviously to a certain extent. I think the show maybe looked at kids at being a little bit stupid, because you're thinking, well, you've seen through history what doping can do to you, obviously with the East Germans being the first ones on record as to be in state run doping, and you could see obviously, well, the kids, the young adults had no say in what was going in their body. Obviously with the Russians, I'm speculating they probably did, so it's kind of tit for tat. So it's similar, but it's not. Obviously, I've learnt. Oh, okay, that happened when I was born, 86. That's over a decade after the fact, I learned, well, this is what they've taken. We'll use the women as the example. They were taking obviously high amounts of testosterone. They didn't look like women, so you're thinking, well, that should be alarm bells ringing. That's can't be right. And obviously they've got health issues now that we're going to live with them for the rest of their lives. Obviously, it's going to have a knock-on effect in your later life. I think another one would have been a couple of months ago. Oh, I can't remember who the interviewer was, but they were interviewing obviously one of the American sprinters who tested positive for it, and he was talking about obviously why the athletes do it in the first place. Obviously, it's the money is a big issue to get to that prestige. It's staying there, but obviously he has regrets now that he's done it. Obviously, because it's having a detrimental effect on his health. So to kind of why probably it should be taught in schools, obviously the ramifications of what actually doping can do to you is probably, I don't think you have to use the scare tactics as such, maybe for certain individuals because they are possibly, and I'm kind of generalizing here, are likely to go down that route later on in life. But for the ones like myself who are willing to kind of learn from history and kind of, I won't say toe the line to a certain extent, because you always want it's kind of human nature to kind of find shortcuts to a certain extent. So to kind of learn, well, this is what this person did. Obviously, there's a knock-on effect, so this is why I shouldn't do it. Obviously, the program also did talk about people are what's the word I'm looking for? Not keen to experiment, but they want to see what effects that it has. Okay, so they're thinking, well, why would you? It's kind of a mindset that I don't understand. Why would you want to experiment with something you possibly don't know what the side effects are, and you're going to put that in your body? So you're thinking, okay, you're kind of looking at the short-term effects. Probably, if I kind of reflect on it and kind of analyze why somebody would do that, it's probably looking at the short term. Okay, I'm not getting the gains that I want, so I'll look to use steroids to obviously help my training, and obviously from that aspect, the individual might say, well, it's not me, it's not my training that's improving, it's the actual steroid that is making me obviously improving training. So it's kind of, they're kind of having that shift in their mindset, and thinking it's actually the drug that's doing the work, when it's in case of, okay, I think it's because you're able to block out pain, so you're able to train more. So it's probably a bit of a mixture, because you're obviously the training volume's going to go up, so you're going to see some results. But okay, as it's an anabolic steroid, it's going to increase it exponentially. So yeah, so it's kind of twofold as to why I think they would improve. But they kind of have a mindset as to, I'm getting bigger solely because of the drug, so I need to keep on it so I don't lose it. So it's kind of, they kind of lose touch with themselves to a certain extent, and kind of undervalue their actual progression. Okay, so, okay, you, to a certain extent, yeah, it's going to take some people longer to improve their physique because of the genetics, or something you can't physically change. Okay, you can do it through doping, but if if you wanted to do it the clean way, obviously you've got to be willing to what's the word I want, to follow the process and kind of stick with it. It's one that I related to. I'm thinking sometime last week about fat loss, and it's kind of one you could probably say to anything in life. It's stay in the course. It's kind of accepting the process and kind of trusting in it that you will if you do everything in your power, be it eat right, train right, sleep correctly, the results will come. But it's kind of I think it's possibly with the ones with doing doping, they're kind of short-sighted. They're not willing to obviously trust in the process. They want it now, now, now. But I think it possibly has come probably more problematic now, is because obviously with society, everybody wants everything now. It's kind of gone away from the Ado adage. Okay, I know I'm kind of going sidetracking now. Of the if we use the analogy, if people want the latest electronic device, whatever that, etc. Whereas we go back, say about a decade or more, people were willing to, if I wanted to buy something, I don't have the money for it right now, I will save up for it and then do it. And I think society has kind of gone away from that, be it probably across the board, and it's probably, that's probably why we've got that mindset of, oh, if I haven't got it now, I can't be bothered, I'll try something else. Or it's kind of, you want to stick with something and kind of going with it. So that's kind of my segment for